Boom! Yes, folks, Hume again. How are you going? So, we are starting our series of analyses of the marginal constituencies, the so-called marginal constituencies for the 2020 election. Alright? Just a recap, remember I would have defined marginal for the sake of my own analysis as any seat that would have changed hands at least once over the course of the last 3 electoral cycles prior to the one we're going to have in August, right? That will be 2007, 2010, and 2015. Those are the 3 elections to date where we would have had 41 seats in the national setup, all right? 39 in Trinidad, 2 in Tobago. So today we're going to start with the Tobago seats. We're going to deal with Tobago East and Tobago West, and then we'll go on with the other seats coming down the road. Now, before I get into the numbers, I want to indulge in a little bit of non-mathematical speculation. All right, as a Trinidadian who has been interested in politics for a while, I am always a little guarded when talking about Tobago politics, because as I have been, as I would have learned over the years, the Tobago politics has a particular culture of its own that sometimes Trinidadians don't understand. So I always like to talk to my Tobago peeps and get a sense of what's going on the ground before I come to any kind of firm conclusion where the Tobago politics is concerned. Alright? On this occasion, however, I will take the liberty of making my own projections, alright, independent of any confirmation from my Tobago peeps. If they confirm one way or the other afterwards, that's no problem. That's all part of what we do. We discussing, we learning, and we trading ideas with each other. So my initial thought, like that of most Trinidadians, and I've been very specific here with respect to Trinidadians versus Tobagonians, all right? My initial thought is that with a Tobagonian Prime Minister in the diplomatic center, it is hardly likely that the Tobago seats would drift away from the PNM in the 2020 election. All right? Barring, of course, any major earth-shattering political development, you never know how these things go sometimes, I don't see Tobago East and Tobago West drifting away from the PNM, especially given the huge majorities by which those 2 seats were won in the 2015 general election, which we will see in a little bit when we go on to the graph. So that's my initial prediction, and I'm going to step out on a limb and project that, even before going into any deep analysis, even before going into any deep conversation with my Tobago people, right? I might be wrong, who knows, but that is a risk I am willing to take at this point. Good? So we're going to put the 2 Tobago seats in the PNM column, all right? So in terms of my own projections and my personal Facebook wall, at this point, after the Tobago seats are considered, the tally would be 15 UNC and 14 PNM, all right? I'm taking it little by little, building up. So we're taking our time, we analyzing a little bit, we put in certain seats in certain columns, so that when we get to those seats where we're really not sure from a non-mathematical standpoint, and then even when we go into the numbers, we're still not sure how it might play out, that is where the thing going to get really, really exciting. And that is where it's going to come down to maybe a small majority in terms of the final count, one way or the other, or if we have some major political development, something else, something might happen. All right. So I'm going to put the 2 Tobago seats in the PNM column for now, and now I will go on to the graph just to give you a sense of some of the figures that we're playing with. And of course, at the end, I will talk a little bit about my CSEC Maths online offering. All right, my Tobago people, you could fall in as well too, right? Especially with it being online, you could interact with it without having to worry about, you know, the distance and all that. But we'll get to that a little more at the end of the video. So let us go across now to the graphs. All right, so we're starting with Tobago East. Yes, so the red line, of course, would be the PNM percentages, and the yellow line, of course, would be the non-PNM percentages, right? I'm using the color yellow to represent everybody who has historically being opposed to the PNM in different electoral cycles, right? Because as we know, whatever else you might think about the party, the PNM is the one political constant throughout the post-1956 electoral history of this country in terms of a party formation, right? And what you find is that the parties that have been opposed to the PNM would have taken different incarnations in different electoral cycles. So for the sake of simplicity, we just put it as PNM versus non-PNM. Red for PNM, yellow for non-PNM. So in the 2007 general elections, we had 51.6 for the PNM, 43.5 for the non-PNM. In the 2010, when the PNM lost, we had 57.8 for the non-PNM, 41.7 for the PNM. And of course in 2015, where we had the PNM winning in Tobago, we had 69.5 for the PNM in Tobago East, 30.5 for the non-PNM. Alright, now of course, we use these figures to make certain projections. Alright, now with this kind of gap between the PNM and the non-PNM in 2015, absent any major scandal of earth-shattering proportions, we don't expect this result to be overturned in 2020. And from a strict mathematical standpoint, you see that being borne out here as well, where the projections actually giving PNM projected percentage of 72.2%, as you can see just over the 70% line for 2020. And the non-PNM, we get in a projection of 31%, just over the 30% line here. Of course, depending on other factors, the numbers may not actually end up being this high, but because of the massive distance here and absent any major earth-shattering political developments here, we expect the PNM to get the victory in Tobago East in 2020. Tobago West now, similar story in terms of the numbers, similar shape in terms of the graphs. Alright, so in 2007 we have 58.3 for the PNM, 43.3 for the non-PNM in Tobago West. In 2010, when we had the PNM losing both Tobago seats, the numbers were kind of closer. The PNM would have had 46.6% and the non-PNM would have gone up to 53.1%. And then of course in 2015, we see what took place here. 79.2% for the PNM, 20.8% for the non-PNM. So again, just as in the case of Tobago East, with this kind of gap between the two parties in 2015, barring any earth-shattering political development, we don't expect that gap to be overturned. Maybe it might be a little less, but the result we're expecting to be the same. My projections, you see in the trend lines here, the red line here and the yellow line here, my projections for 2020 will give PNM a percentage of 81.9% and the non-PNM would be 16.6% in Tobago West. Alright? Of course, those figures may not actually end up being the figures, but I believe I could say with some level of confidence that the result in Tobago West in 2020 would be a victory for the PNM together with a victory for the PNM in Tobago East. Alright? So that is more or less, these are the projections, remember, for 2007 to 2015. So that's it. Short, quick and snappy. No sort of intricate mathematics there. And we're going to just close up the video now with a couple more comments. Right, so to wrap up, yes, so we indulged in the non-mathematical speculation and we went to the graphs. And the graphs seem to be pretty much saying the same thing that our non-mathematical instincts seem to be suggesting, which is that barring any major unforeseen development, the PNM could reasonably be expected to win the 2 Tobago seats in 2020. Good? So, which would then, that now would mean that as far as my own tallying is concerned, at this point in terms of the overall national setup, I have UNC at 15 safe seats, the PNM at 12 safe seats, plus the 2 Tobago safe, plus the 2 Tobago seats. I don't want to call the Tobago seats safe seats, strictly because of the definition that we use for the marginals. So 12 safe seats for the PNM, plus the 2 Tobago seats, that's 14 All right. So 15 and 14 is 29. That means we have 12 more seats to account for. All right. 12 more of the marginals, so-called marginals, as we put them. All right. So I want to talk about my online offering for the CSEC mathematics exam for those of you who are doing it in January. All right. So for the people in Tobago, for those of you who are people who work in private students, that kind of thing, all right, you could get on board with my online platform. We just finished Pythagoras theorem this week here, and this week coming we're going to be starting trigonometry. The whole idea is that whatever I teach now, whatever I go through in the videos, whatever questions and all that, we're not going to be doing that over in September or October. So I want to take the opportunity to encourage the people in Tobago who are doing the exams in January. Don't wait until September to start. If you start in September, that is like you're skating on thin ice, so to speak. Right? We're already halfway through July, so if you take the second half of July and the whole of August, you give yourself an extra 6 to 7 weeks of preparation, so that when we come to September and everybody excited and the whole place hot, you'll be on the road already. You're on the ground and the wheels turning, as opposed to you're now hitting the road and you know how to crank up and warm up. No. Alright? Don't wait until you register for the exam to start preparing. Your preparation is a different kettle of fish to your registration. Your preparation is supposed to start long before you register. Alright? Think of it in school. You're in form 1, you don't register for the exam until form 5. So the same principle would apply even when you're not in school. Alright? So those who are not in school and whatever, who are working and stuff, perfect platform. Check the link on the original post on my Facebook page, Hume. Alright, I'm going to put the link at the bottom of the screen here as well. Of course, you could also WhatsApp at 293-5712 and I'll give you further information there. What about the people who are in school? The Form 4s who are going into Form 5, and of course the Form 5s who are doing CXC exam in July and who would want to do over the exam in January to get a proper grade. Alright, same story. Well, in the case of the Form 5s, you do your exams now, take a couple weeks, maybe a little more to rest and relax after the exam, and then you could start and we could get our preparation going for the final exam in January. Alright, students who in Form 4 going into Form 5, it wouldn't hurt. Get some preparation in, get some exam experience for the exam in June. So that's basically it. The cost $500 for the remainder of 2020, and of course, for those of you who are doing ADMATS, alright, who will be doing the ADMATS exam in June next year, I have something coming up for you as well. And of course, when you take the ADMATS, you also get the maths as part of the package as well. One of the really nice experiences that I have had, this would have been a couple of years ago, a Tobagonian person, I would have advertised my ADMATS solutions, my book of ADMATS solutions online, and a Tobagonian messaged me. He said he wanted to buy the book, so forth and so forth and so forth. And they were in Trinidad for something not too long after, and I was actually able to go and meet them and do the transaction. That was a really special experience for me, because it was me expanding past the normal geographical borders of Trinidad. And we know that there are so many issues with respect to trade and business and travel and communication between Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, the ferry being one of those that will always take on some kind of big political dimensions, but that's a different conversation. Alright? So, taking off from that, where I was actually able to sell a physical textbook to a Tobagonian family who were preparing the child for the ADMATS. Right? I want to expand that now. We have it online, so you don't have to come to Trinidad, right? And you don't even have to come to Trinidad to pay. You could pay by a bank deposit. You could pay via a credit card. So don't let the distance be an issue. The distance is not an issue where the online setup is concerned. Alright? So again, I want to make a special encouragement to the people of Tobago to get on my online platform. The road to January for the maths and we have something coming up for the admins too, where you get the 2-for-1, but we'll talk about that a little later. And before I go with this video, I want to say a very special shout out to 2 Tobagonians that I would have had the opportunity of collaborating with at the university, mathematical collaborations. The first is Dr. Winford James. I had the opportunity about 10 years ago. Yeah, that was about 10 years ago. I didn't realize it was so long ago, of doing some collaborations with him at the School of Education in Hume. And of course, Mr. Carlos Hazel, who I would have collaborated with over a number of years at the Hume Open Campus and in the Faculty of Social Sciences at the Hume. So, big up my Tobago people. We start off the analysis with you all, and of course, you have my maths platforms to check out. Alright? So, that's it for now. Everybody look out. We have more. We're going into some of the other seats later. So stay tuned. We have plenty more coming your way.